taking a critical look at the gaming news of the week. This is Augmented Reality, presented by the Triple S League.
Hello everybody, this is the Cybsidian and Ash show, and he is currently having hiccups, so we are just going to go ham on this. The Augmented Reality podcast number 140, and it's going to be great. Ash has the hiccups, so he sounds really funny. I always laugh when people have the hiccups near me because it's really hilarious. So anyways, today's podcast is going to be pretty Cyberpunk focused, as we have multiplayer news, Keanu Reeves news, and of course we have the hey, did you guys know that Cyberpunk is so totally not worth the hype at all? Like, oh my god, like it's so yesterday. Throw me off a roof, please.
Hello, everybody. By the way,
not serious. Hello, Ash. How are you?
I am still here. I'm just. I had the hiccups earlier today. They were really bad, and when I get them, they get really bad, like body convulsing kind of a thing. This has never happened on a podcast day before, but they were gone, and then literally like 2 minutes before we started, they came back. And it's like, so anyway, I'm gonna let Cyb carry most of the talking today. But
it's also gonna be we're gonna be pretty quick today. We are still working on this story. We are checking some sources still. We're trying to get it together. We will have this story sometime coming up, hopefully tomorrow. And the Mad Queen and a couple others are going to have this video coming, their videos and their responses to this coming out, because this has been a lot of info, a lot of going through this stuff, and a lot of finding out very interesting, very cryptic, very insane things. Let's just say what it is. It's insane. It's mental. It's pure insanity. What we have been finding out, what we have been discovering. I have been doing all kinds of sleuthing, and I have been.
Well, you and the Mad Queen, you and the Mad Queen have discovered some very, very interesting things that we're going to be bringing very soon. Videos hopefully going up tomorrow. That really really have to do with all this negativity that's been aimed at Cyberpunk 2077.
And you'll have a hard time guessing where it all leads to. And again, we're not telling you what to think. We're only asking you to think, and that is indeed a line from something. All right. So today on the news bracket, I opened up the news earlier today, and I saw that. Forbes is now telling us that we should not be caught up in the Cyberpunk 2077 hype, because it's just not going to be that good. Amazing. It's just not going to be that good. It's that brilliant. It's that insane. It's that moronic. I like, seriously, wow. I can't believe people and stupidity.
It seems to be this article, the thrust of it seems to be, can they really deliver something as amazing as they've promised, and as it looks in the slices of gameplay that we've seen?
Mm-hmm.
And it seems doubtful on that front, despite what we've seen recently coming from games and what we've seen coming from CD Projekt Red. I mean, I know we've had some significant disappointments from certain games recently, but why on earth you would doubt? I mean, there is always a risk of overhyping, but why we would doubt when what we've seen has been. It doesn't look like they're going to fall short of delivering.
It's been as good as it is, like, and it comes again from this concept from the professional journalist. The professional journalist tells us that we don't need to expect more from a game studio. What we got from Red Dead 2 is the best we're ever going to get from anything. Or was it, what was it before that one? And what was it before that game? And what was it before that game? It's like, honestly, it comes from this comes from a lot of like having to deal with this stuff in the last couple of weeks, with E3, all the stuff that went on there, all the stuff that went on immediately following. I have to say that I'm disappointed that that people are so willing to trust journalists that just don't have it together. Because here's a quick thought. Here's a quick thought for you. The concept that we can't improve games, that companies can only do what they can do, and that games are really hard to make as it is, and we should just stop expecting people to evolve. This comes from us having spent the past couple of weeks conversing with and working with game developers who are working on projects that are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-man jobs, and they are better looking, more realistic, and overall, a smarter, newer way of doing gaming. I played a MOBA just recently. A MOBA, as in, like, wait a second, you mean like an old MOBA? No, a new MOBA. A MOBA that's being worked on right now. That was a hell of a lot more fun than any MOBA I have played, well, ever. And it's in, like, early alpha. It's like really, really early alpha. And it's so good because it's thinking outside the box. It's thinking outside of what a MOBA used to be. And it's interesting and it's fascinating. And they've taken off all these handholds and bars and they've stopped restricting things. And what you get is an interesting new take on it, that you're like, sure, I've done some of this before, but I haven't done some of this other stuff before. And it's involved in this pack. How many people are working on that? 3 people. Just 3. How's the graphics? Amazing. How many character customization options do we get? Like, how many separate sliders or morphs or options do we get in grand total? How many? Well, right now in the alpha, a little over 200. Are they all like, do they really affect it? Yes, they do. It's amazing. It's amazing what happens when new people try new things. And what we're hearing from Forbes is that, hey, we really shouldn't expect very much. In fact, Cyberpunk is shooting for the moon, frankly, and there's no way that they can fill it. So basically, everybody's going to be disappointed. Why? Well, gunplay looks a little stiff. Like really stiff? No, just a tad stiff. You mean like a tiny bit stiff? No. Like very subtly, like not really noticeable stiff. Oh, okay. So you're just saying this. Why? Why is this person saying this? What is their ulterior motive? Because when you say something like this, I'm betting it comes with, probably some kind of ulterior motive. Is he just trying to be, is he just trying to tamp the flames down, say, hey, don't freak out so much, or don't expect it to cure cancer? Well, then say, don't expect it to cure cancer. Maybe what you want to say is something like, The Witcher 3, what he's saying here right now is this developer more than showed itself capable with the scale of The Witcher 3, but Cyberpunk 2077 feels like it's supposed to be an order of magnitude larger than even the best of even that beast of an RPG. And it's like, why? Wow. He continues. It also comes along with much more involved combat system than cdpr's project has ever had before, with more complex level design, more complex progression mechanics, and a much more detailed world. Technical challenges of the so far. The promises you've heard there are immense, and the only thing I can say for certain is that this game will not live up to the idealized version that currently lives in the mind of many players' heads. You mean from the trailers that we've already, not from the trailers, from the gameplay we've already seen? That's what you're assuming that we're overestimating on. Again, this is a company that reinvents the wheel. They don't just fix it up, patch it up, and slap the old one on the new car. No, they go back and say, how can we improve this from the ground up? This is an RPG first. It's not a shooter first. It's an RPG first. Yeah, I have an issue with the camera thing, but that's a single that's a single issue. But this guy's saying, look, there's no way anything can live up to what you're imagining, so therefore just don't imagine it at all and expect this game to be garbage.
Well, when I was first imagining this game, when we were first covering it, I had a picture in my head of what it was going to look like. I had a bit of a picture from the teaser they had put out way back. Mm-hmm. That's about it. then the gameplay actually came, or the trailer actually came out, and then the gameplay actually came out, and it far exceeded what I was imagining. Why would I expect that it would be any different now? We don't know what they've been working on. We don't know the improvements to the tech they've made, the improvements to the engine. Like, yeah, I don't agree with it in this case. I mean, I think there is a risk of overhyping in certain circumstances, but I don't think so here. I think they've consistently exceeded our expectations in terms of, at least for me, in terms of what I've seen from what they have put out, and even in what has been described, you know, from the gameplay that was at E3 2019, it exceeds my expectations constantly. So, yeah, I'm not worried about this at all. I'm not worried about overhyping it.
You know, and
it's already beyond what I was expecting. So,
yeah, absolutely. Now, here's something else that I want to bring up. So, in our Discord server, somebody, Mr. Rabbit, hello, Rabbit. I hope you are listening. Rabbit asked me and said, you know, is CDPR, you know, setting a much needed example in the industry right now? And what you're going to find out from what we're going to talk about tomorrow, from the research that we've been doing, from the cloak and daggers that I have been doing, which I may or may not have. Oh no, I probably shouldn't say that. There is a lot of things going on in the gaming industry right now that are really wrong. There's a lot of good things going on too, but I think there's a little bit more bad things going on. And we as a community hope that these things can be stopped, because if not, we end up getting into this ever increasing drain circle. You know, like where the water goes around and around in a drain. It's like once you're trapped in it, you're trapped in it, and you just go around and around and around and around before eventually going down the drain. And I think, you know, this is what's currently happening in the industry. And why is it happening in the industry? Mostly it's happening because companies are greedy, people are greedy, the lead developers are really, really greedy, like the people who run the companies, the CEOs and whatnot. And they're not willing to try. Everybody chases a trend. Very few people actually set a trend. Very, very few people set a trend. Most people, you know, just deal with stuff, you know, as it comes, and then that's it. And they don't really go out of their comfort zone. They don't really try to do too much that's new. They're just chasing a trend. And they let the indie developers and the low, kind of like the new people out there, they're the ones who are, you know, creating a foray into the new trends, and they're the ones who are making things, you know, possible. But we look back on it, and we're not really getting anywhere with the major brands, because again, they're just chasing trends and they're just rehashing stuff. Like, once again, Blizzard has no intention of creating a new IP. It's just rehashing old IPs. You know, they put out one new IP in 20 years. It's Overwatch, and it's, you know, it's not great. I like great art design, great, you know, general gameplay, but when it comes to the actual, like, it's just the same thing, and it's never anything new. And they're working on a new game that supposedly will change it all, and, you know, and hey, that's probably something you should have done, like, I don't know, like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, maybe. Instead, they just let this thing sit until it dries up, can't soak up any more money. So what do? Then they switch it to the, you know, then they bring in new stuff. It's like, goodness sakes. Anyways, yes, the industry is also fine with, like, not pushing themselves and not making something better than it can be, and just kind of like putting it out there and being, okay. And there, like I said, there's a few exceptions. Microsoft is really, really trying to push themselves into something new. They're still a little formulaic. They're still rushing things out a little bit too soon. You know, we've seen them put some delays and holds on stuff. That's kind of a good thing. But then they're also willing to, you know, experiment, and that's good. And they should be given props. And we should encourage that kind of behavior, so that it can continue to grow and foster the, you know, the creative ideas and the creative freedom, and the freedom, you know, from being shackled down to like a single platform or provider or publisher or whatever. It's like we don't want that, and they're moving away from that as well, and they're making it clear that they're moving away from that so that they can be better, in general.
Could this be part of why there's so much animosity towards them in sort of the establishment game media and other?
Yes, and well, this is the question that kind of Rabbit was trying to get at, was that maybe this loud noise, and maybe these people are upset right now because this is messing with their thing, right? Like they're living the high life right now with Fortnite and a bunch of these other games where it's just copy paste. Activision's been existing off of this for years now. Nothing new, nothing interesting, nothing out of the ordinary. It's just rehashing old content over and over and over and over again, and they don't give a rat's butt about what you could or couldn't do. They'd rather keep it to themselves. And I think this is, and really, I'm trying to be careful because I don't want to say a bunch of stuff that we're going to be talking about tomorrow, but it does factor in what we're going to be talking about tomorrow. People are greedy and they want the status quo. They don't want challenge, and we see this in political systems too. Like all the old establishment stuff is constantly dying right now because they're not willing to change. They're not willing to try something new, and they're whatever they want. They're certainly not willing to listen to the public. Oh my goodness, no. They're like, listen to what people want? Pff, no. And again, election after election is showing this. New parties being made, in some cases, a few months, or if in one case, like a few weeks before an election, and they storm the whole thing. Why? Because they're finally saying enough with the old guard and in with the new. You guys you just can't do it anymore. And they're replacing both systems or all of the current hierarchies, and they're replacing it completely. And it's like, good. Well, we need that, and about time too. But this is especially true in gaming right now. We've got a lot of old companies that are really interested in just milking you absolutely dry. The latest thing with the way that they're stating the way that they're stating how they're defending the microtransactions, it's absolutely gross. It's absolutely
surprise
disgusting.
Mechanics, yeah.
Yes, yeah, it's a surprise mechanic. Oh, okay, a surprise mechanic. That's your defense. That's your how you're going to be dealing with this.
Surprise! You just wasted $5. So we had another message on our Discord server from Flavio Vieira asking how much damage, if at all, will these articles and similar things do to the game or to CD Projekt Red? And also, should we as a community be more vocal or make a more radical stance against all the backlash, or should we just ignore it all? And this is something that we got quite a few comments about on our last podcast, too. We had people saying, yes, stand up to this, hold these people's feet to the fire, do this. And we had other people saying, no, you should just ignore it because then, if you address it, you're just giving them what they want. If you ignore it, you're more likely to make it go away. And
No. If you ignore something, it does not go away. That is not how this works anymore. This might have been how it worked, in the past, but now it's no, because we've seen what happens when you ignore it. You just continue to lose ground. Because these people step forward to try and take everything from you. And I don't want to sound conspiratorial, and tomorrow, we really don't want to sound conspiratorial. But I need you to understand there are people here, there are people who run big corporations today that feel that if everybody just did exactly what they thought, how they felt, and how they felt that everybody should act, that everything would be better. That if there was just none of this pesky free choice or free will, if everybody just did exactly as they were told, then everything would be better. And these people exist, and these people demand that everybody follow exactly what they say, exactly how they say it, and they go to there is no ends at how far they will go with this. It's not a conspiracy. People like this have always existed. People like this are the main reason why you have wars, why you have tyrannical governments, why you have authoritarian. You break it all the way down to the family. Like, as soon as somebody starts thinking like this in a family, the family gets, goes through hell. As soon as somebody in a small community starts doing this, they tear the community apart, and up it goes. You either get tyrants. There's a good quote I heard today. You're either in the market for free. You're either in the market to discuss and to negotiate, or your only other two choices from that is slavery or becoming a tyrant. So either you're willing to stand and negotiate to work out a deal that affects everybody to the best of the abilities that you can negotiate, or you're a slave or you're a tyrant. Those are your options. And in this, 100%, what we're looking at is we're looking at a bunch of companies that are like, oh no, it's our way or the highway. And they are, and this attack that's being made against CDPR is because they don't adhere to that rule. They adhere to the rule of just make good games. And the attacks against Microsoft, because Microsoft is now touting this line, as soon as they start to prove that they believe this line, as soon as they step into the arena with this as a true concept that they're following through on, just wait to see how fast the fire turns against them. Because this stuff escalates, as Mark Jackson in the chat is saying, this escalates so quickly. And it really, really does. Because again, this is not, it's games, it's video games, don't get political. We're not being political because this isn't a political thing. This affects politics a lot. But in reality, like I said, you break it down to anything. If you're part of a bowling team and you suddenly get a tyrant that joins your team and starts ordering everybody around, it suddenly doesn't become fun anymore. And we want to keep games fun. Some of us deal with very stressful jobs, very dangerous jobs. Some of us work, mind-numbingly boring jobs. Some of us have crappy, life experiences, and it's really dragged us down. You want games to be an outlet for fun. You don't want to overdo them, just like you don't want to overdo alcohol or anything else like that. Moderation is key, and learning how to balance life is really good. And you get the most fun out of things when you learn to balance things really well. When your life is really balanced, your fun times are really fun, and your work times are really, they're really it's meaningful. And you get as long as you're doing something you enjoy. But in this case, what we're talking about is there's an attack against gaming that they're trying to force every company and every industry to follow this very rigid path. It's like, oh, no, we want you to do this. And if you don't do this, we will crush you. And that's what we continually hear. We are going to crush you if you don't follow through. And this is what we've uncovered. This is what we're going to talk about in the next video. This is what we're going to put out there. We're going to put it out with as much evidence as we can. And, we have way more. I've uncovered a rat's nest of insanity. And it only gets deeper and more insane every minute that I keep digging. And it's like, we can only show so much. So we're going to show that tomorrow.
We are actually only going to show information that is publicly available. Not even just that we can prove. We're going to be showing information that is publicly available that you can look up yourselves. We're just going to be tying it together. Mm-hmm. So look for that tomorrow. It's been an interesting project working on this particular video. The chat is having fun with the term surprise mechanic. No, we are not talking about when an automotive technician jumps out of a birthday cake. We're not talking about when they sneak into your garage and fix your car overnight. Funny ideas, though. I love the chat. They're always good fun to read while we're doing this.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
All right, take it away with the next topic, or continue with that.
Yeah, so we've got, and Keanu Reeves is a really good pick for this, and I'm glad he's doing what he's doing, and I'm glad that he's as outspoken as he is right now. the interesting thing, and something that I really, 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 really like what he's doing, is that he's standing up and he's making a pretty bold statement that Hollywood doesn't need to legitimize gaming. You know, there's all this like talk, and I mean, especially we see it in elections. It's like, well, Hollywood has to agree on whether or not, you know, this is going to be good for whatever thing that people are voting on. It's like, you mean people who are so rich and they're so segmented from reality that most of the time their marriages can't stay together for more than a year, which is really sad because it just shows you the state of their mind.
Yes, rich cultural elitists. We need their validation for everything.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about the kind of people that actually read Forbes.
Yeah.
I was just noticing that Forbes has a tab at the top of their website that says billionaires. Yes, this sounds relevant to your average gamer. Anyway, that's a tangent.
Yeah, and again, it's just the madness that continues to just feed into this never-ending cycle of stupidity. And Keanu is right. He's absolutely right, and why I think he's such a great pick for this role. And I'm so glad that they got him, because this is so important. You don't need, you know, Hollywood to confirm whether or not that this is a good thing. I like some of his other quotes here too, about Johnny and and we're starting to get more of a peek into this. You know, Johnny Silverhand, is he your friend? Is he your foe? Is he really helping you? Is he not helping you? Are you in his way? These are some of the statements that he made. And again, when I talked a little bit ago about the plot concerning him and the plot concerning the game in general, I did make a couple winks and nods to this. So keep your eye on that. It's going to get better, and it's good because I mean that's good, and you can kind of change things as you go, and that's the mark of a good story, is where this is going to feel great, and this is going to feel, you know, good. Yeah. So he talks about how he's got this friend who has two sons, and you know, my sons have been waiting so long to play this game, and when they saw that you were in it, they just went insane. Like, that's cool, and he's a cool guy, and I appreciate that. So, you know, that's good. That's good.
He seems like he'd be a fun, down to earth guy to hang out with.
It's
hard to tell. I mean, it's always hard to tell because, you know, some of these people they just put on a persona all the time when they're in public. But
I hear he's a little bit more level headed. He likes to get down with, you know, I hear he's like, out of all the Hollywood people, there's a couple of them that have like seem to have a real backbone, and I think he's kind of on that list. At least he's on the list in the way that he's not like all of the others, or most of the others.
Plus,
you know, most Hollywood are rich snobs that are really good actors, but really bad people to like live with and try to like be with.
Artists can be very, very interesting and difficult people, and in my experience, people in the performing arts can be especially that way. I mean, that's only my own experience. It's limited, but yeah, that's definitely been my experience. Also, I am constantly being recommended to watch videos of Keanu Reeves playing with puppies. Just thought I'd throw that out there. I mean, what is more down to earth than that?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So then this other thing that we've got is that CDPR is not ruling out whether or not Cyberpunk 2077 is going to have multiplayer or not yet. It's being said in an article that basically it will be post-launch DLC. This is something we've been confirming ever since we got basically the confirmation that they had to backscale a little bit of this technology due to limitations on the current consoles, and that they were aiming to get this out for the consoles. They actually delayed it a fair bit, which is why it ended up being in at the release window that it was. Originally when they started this project, way back a long time ago with that first teaser. They were expecting to get this out shortly after like the next Witcher game, and the Witcher game was supposed to be out like a year sooner than it was. So we were supposed to already be playing this game for well over a year now. Basically, was the original plan, and that has since, of course, been driven back a little bit, which does tend to happen whenever you set a scope to kind of creating something. Whenever you're trying to push the boundaries, this kind of stuff happens. So multiplayer is most likely going to be in a DLC, but this is also kind of like, don't read too much into this because this is kind of a tease. They may be doing it in its own next game, or it may follow through with a major DLC patch on the new consoles. There's a whole variety of things that can be done and can be tweaked. So yeah, overall, don't lose your mind too much about this. This is basically just like let you know this is something that they've always wanted to do. It's at the core of what they want to do. They may not be able to get it out right away, but it is part of the plan, whether it's this game or the next, or this game's in a DLC or in the next game down the road. It's going to be one of those two things. So, yeah.
Manny Calavera's wondering, what do you mean by downscaling? What did they downscale?
They did have to downscale a couple things when it came to multiplayer because of the way that multiplayer and single player interact. So it's a little bit of a different code setup. You have to have different things, and when you're dealing with a limited system like a console, there's only so much you can do. Like you can't throw in everything and the moon. You have to like cut back on certain stuff in order to make it happen, or in order to make it function. So yeah, that's basically where that boils down to.
Okay, sounds good. All right, what else was on your list of topics for today?
So I mean, other than that, there's not too much else going on that I was able to catch up on, because things with this article, as you know, is going crazy. So other than that, we have like just generally like the feedback on the whole CDPR thing. We're going to be touching base on why exactly it's happening tomorrow, what connections we've been able to verify. But past that, just generally, it's going to get worse. And I'm going to let everybody know this now. This is going to get worse. There's been people that have been attacking, long-standing community people and friends over the fact that they're anticipating this game. It's like, I'm sorry, you can't anticipate this game. It's no longer on the list. It's like, what do you mean the list? What kind of, wait, there's a list? What kind of list is this, and where is this list coming from? Who's making this list? Where does this list get decided? And it's, like I said, it's frankly disturbing. Like how many people like feed into this. It's like
this is one of the points that we're going to go into in the video tomorrow. In an ideal world, journalism would be about seeking the truth, reporting the information that you think people want to hear and know about as objectively as possible. But we don't live in a perfect world. There are financial interests. Journalism is a business. And that doesn't mean there aren't good journalists, and it doesn't mean there aren't good news organizations. But it feels like they're becoming more and more few and far between. And there are ulterior motives for what news organizations choose to focus on and what kind of a spin they choose to give it. And it is a disturbing circumstance, really. And I mean, gaming is a microcosm of our entire culture. It's happening everywhere. But it's also specifically happening in gaming. And we're not a fan of that.
Manny, about the question as to the downscaling, was single player downscaled? Only ever so slightly, and only to probably better the story. There was some original concepts that they were going to go with to kind of open up the world a little bit more, to let you be like basically anybody and anything, and to really like give you the option to just go crazy. that you could literally be any of the classes, any of the existing classes, that you could fill up a whole bunch of roles. But unfortunately, that kind of stuff that's this kind of stuff that's like, no, you need a team that's really versed into the lore and the world before you can just turn them around and say go nuts. So I think when you make the first entry in a series, you have to be kind of more laser focused, versus like down the road you could be like, really open up and basically go anywhere and do anything. So.
Okay. All right. Let us know if there's anything that you folks out there want us to talk about here tonight, off the top of your heads, or if any news topics you've seen pop up over the past day or so. Like, it feels like we've covered everything. We're kind of in that lull period right after E3, and of course there's been a lot of fallout, and we're in this long tail period of all of this bad press about Cyberpunk 2077 and CD Projekt Red. And I feel like I can actually talk now, so this is good. Sorry I was completely useless for the first part of this podcast, but if you're listening live today, please say hello in the live chat and send us your questions and comments there as well. We'll read and respond to as many as we can throughout the podcast, which is basically what I already said, because I was actually wanting to read this. We love seeing you all so active in the live chat, and if you want to keep the conversation going after the live broadcast, we welcome you to join our Discord community. You can find the link in the description below. It's a place where you can chat with us and other Triple S fans about all the things we love to talk about and stay up to date about everything we're doing here at the Triple S League. And as you know, if you were listening earlier on in this podcast, we took a couple of questions that people had posted there in our content requests area and talked about them here. So we do stuff like that. We have been swamped with this Cyberpunk 2077 stuff and with the research that we're doing. So if you have anything of interest that you want us to discuss, and you're welcome for discussing the questions there, Rabbit. Hello, Captain Dammit. Okay, but yeah, that seems to really be the big news. This is all I've been seeing. Everything that's been coming across my feed recently has been Cyberpunk stuff, CD Projekt Red stuff. It's kind of crazy. Everybody is talking about this, and it's really really been interesting. It's kind of, I wonder if it's partly due to the fact that, not much else came out of E3 that we have to be super hyped for.
Well, we have the interviews. We got Young did a pretty decent interview. He asked some pretty good questions. He got some pretty good answers. So that was kind of nice to see. Nothing super new that we haven't covered before. The biggest news this week is really like how Mike Pondsmith came down on the haters.
Yeah, that was really cool to see. He had some great responses to some of the criticisms. He's defending CD Projekt. He's defending the entire country of Poland, and he's defending himself as a creator.
And how quickly they tried to remove his agency. As like the people complaining, the blue check marks, like how quickly they came in to say, oh, you know what, he's just not very good at being involved in this. It's like, wait, what?
And you're like, wait a second.
How would you
say?
How
what
dare you say that?
He has been involved heavily at every step of the development of this game. Like where people get these ideas, it's like they're just making stuff up. Or it's like they just read some commenter's opinion on the internet, and it's like, yeah, Huge Dong 617 says Mike Pondsmith must not have been involved because of this, and so we're going to report that as news. It's ridiculous. Ketsuru asks, do you think I apologize. I was literally about to read your chat message, and then the chat jumped. Or did you leave your comment?
No, it's still there.
Okay.
Do you think the PC version will get downgraded graphically with the console versions, or maybe you get an update release for the new generations? Yes and yes. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but yeah. No, it's not downgraded. They've really optimized this engine. So that really helps overall with the general with general direction of the game, it really really helps a lot. And now I've got the yawns, of course, which is like so annoying. But yeah, no, the generally just they have made this engine as optimized as it can possibly be.
Yes.
This thing will run on most current day stuff just fine. And that's not really holding anything back, because there is an upper cap at where they can hit. It's not super 100% photorealistic, but it's like really close without stepping into like the uncanny shadow, the uncanny valley kind of thing.
Right. Now, we do know that they have, that and they've recently announced this, that they are working with NVIDIA, and that Cyberpunk 2077 will support ray tracing, which is a new feature on the next generation of NVIDIA cards, or at least some of the cards. So how do you think that's going to go? Is this going to be a gimmick, or do you think it's really going to showcase what ray tracing can do and how much it can increase that graphic fidelity? Like, do you think is it more of a gimmick add-on, or is it going to be something that's going to be worthwhile? If you want to get yourself that expensive NVIDIA card, that RTX card that supports the ray tracing, like, is Cyberpunk going to be a worthwhile game to try it out with?
I think so. I mean, there it is again. So I think so, basically, from the stance that it's going to be cool to see, but you don't have to rush into this. Like, you really don't have to rush into this. Whatever you do, don't spend $5,000 on a new computer. Like, please just don't. Please don't. That's just a little ridiculous and a little insane. What is going to be available, and what the best situation is going to be is pretty much what we're going to see, and how we're going to see it kind of work out is that, sure, it'll be a little bit more fancy for some of the stuff, and it'll really make some awesome like videos and stuff like that. But overall, you're not going to need it tomorrow. However, by the time you get into their second big expansion, that's going to be almost a year later. That kind of tech is going to be basically everywhere, and it's going to be like basically available on everything. So yeah, no, I would say yeah, do that. Don't go crazy. Obviously, first gen technology with the ray tracing is going to be really expensive. Second wave is going to be a lot cheaper. Third wave is going to be standard. So I would say wait until the second gen. It's not that far away. It's like 2 years away, more or less, basically. And that's when we're going to be getting like the first major DLC. So, and again, they call them expansions. They don't call them DLCs. So that first big expansion is really going to do it. Yeah. Captain Dammit, really good point. He'd hold off from the 20 series of NVIDIA graphics. The tech is just too new. And that's it too. It's like, unless you have like a burning desire, or money is burning a major hole in your pocket, then yeah, go ahead and get it. But if you got a really good system and you can already run like the top tier stuff anyways, like, just be happy with that for now. Don't lose your mind over this kind of stuff. It's always best to like moderate. I always get something that's like a little bit lower on the scale, and then I ramp it up with like upgrades, and then it's great, and it lasts me for like the next 4 or 5 years. My computer buying schedule runs at about every 5 years, so every 5 to 6 years I get a brand new computer, and that holds off. That holds off really really well, and I don't go crazy. Like, I'm not spending $3,000. I'm spending usually around $1,500, give or take. And then I upgrade about halfway through with just like basically go out, double the RAM, upgrade a GPU sometimes if I need to, and that's about it. And then that's it again until another like 3 years down the road. So every 3 years I'm getting an upgrade. Every 5 years, it's 5 to 6 years, it's a new computer. So yeah, that's about how I run it.
Okay, right on. Yeah, I mean, it's a cool concept, but just, yeah, when the technology is brand new like that, you have to wonder, is it going to be is it going to be implemented well, and is it really going to be worthwhile? And I'm at the point where, I personally, like, I'm in need of a hardware upgrade, and especially when we get into the next generation of games like Cyberpunk 2077, or I guess if we're talking in console terms, the latter part of this current generation of games, definitely in need of an upgrade. So it's like, how far do you upgrade, and should you spring for that extra ray tracing and all the other bells and whistles? Of course, I'm looking at it as a content creator, as a casual player. Might not be something you want unless you're like a real tech enthusiast and you need the latest card all the time. Well, then maybe. But again, you've got to have some money burning a hole in your pocket in order to even make that happen. So, but ray tracing is fascinating. I find it to be a fascinating concept. Ever since I was a teenager, just working with just doing 3D modeling and rendering, and this whole concept of just sort of really trying to emulate how light works in the real world was quite fascinating to me. I've always been fascinated by 3D graphics. Man, when Toy Story came out, that was mind-blowing to me. I don't even know if they would have used ray tracing on something like that. I mean, Toy Story is which some frames of that movie took days to render on their technology, and now that would be considered very low-end video game graphics.
Well, that's just the thing is, I remember when there was a game that came out that used that engine. They used the engine that made Toy Story 1 was available in some game, and I was like, I don't even remember what the game was. It was just like, wow, what you can do now. It's ridiculous. Like, and I mean,
well, just even like we have live hair animation things and really good hair tech that can render hair in live time, 60 frames per second or 120 frames per second. They weren't even capable of rendering strands of hair at that point. Like, the technology just wasn't there. There's no hair. The hair was all a solid model on every character in that movie. Now, in the later movies, they changed it up, but that was their big technological advancement when they hit Monsters Incorporated, was the fur. Like Sully's fur. That was their big technological jump, where they had created the technology where they could do that. So that was really cool. Anyway, I'm nerding out about Pixar movies now.
Yeah.
That's what happens when there isn't enough to talk about on the podcast, folks. You start hearing about Pixar movies.
So. Oh, Fear. Yeah, I remember Fear. That was a fun game series. I was expecting that to be scary, and all it was just a bunch of jump scares. It's like jump scares, especially when you're like, in Fear you play this guy who's like, got basically superpowers, and you're just walking around. You're just a walking death machine. Mm-hmm. It's like being scared in Doom. You're not scared while you're playing Doom. You're the friggin' Doom Slayer. Like, the demons are like literally like, they're literally sending an army against you, and you're just shrugging like things that would normally melt a human soul. Is like a minor flesh wound to the Doom Slayer. It's so funny. It's so hilarious. Oh, good. This game's gonna be fun. But yeah, Fear was, you couldn't be Fear. You couldn't have Fear while playing Fear because you're a walking death machine, and it's like there's no point in being scared, especially when you find out. And I know I'm going to do a big spoiler here, major spoiler. The scary person thing that you keep seeing, that's your mom. She's not going to hurt you. She's your mom. So yeah.
I don't get it.
Like the character that you're playing. Was that
supposed to be a your mama joke?
No. That's real. The main character in the game is, and you've seen this like little girl and like this woman like run around and do scary stuff all the time, and you find out later that's your mom. So it's like okay.
Yes. So I know I was trying to turn it into a joke about it being a yo mama joke. Katsuro asks another question. What are your expectations on how much the open world will be? I assume you mean how big the open world will be, or how much we're able to actually explore in it. We know that the player can't enter every building. In gameplay video, when the player is in the elevator, we can see the highway, but it seems as background. And it might be. In that case, like when you have progressively rendered games, so like when you have an open world game that is completely seamless, and you see like a highway in the distance, it is it's going to be a much toned down model of what it looks like when you actually get up close to it. You have they're not going to waste a ton of resources, rendering that in insane detail when it's 5 miles away, and it would take you a while to walk there. But as you get closer to it, the game will increase the detail and render the textures, and by the time you reach it, then it has as high a fidelity as the rest of the game around you. But when it's off in the distance, so you might or you might not see cars, or it might look like a background vignette, but that doesn't mean that if you decide to go there and walk up to it, that it won't be something you can interact with, right? It's just one of those things where, the things that are visible that are far away, yeah, they have lower complexity models. And that's often the case with, the characters and objects on the screen too. So what we're expecting is an open world that is fully integrated and perfectly seamless. You won't be able to go in every building, and there may be areas that are inaccessible. But we are expecting something that is absolutely massive and that's absolutely immersive. And it's going to be interesting. A lot of times, these open world games, thinking about the ones I've played recently, you look at Skyrim, you look at Fallout 4, you look at even a game like Sekiro, or what's other open world, even Rage 2, or most of these games are wide open wilderness, right?
Yeah.
This one is going to be city.
Densely packed.
Densely populated city, which is going to give them a lot of interesting opportunities because, when you're in a city surrounded by buildings and stuff, you can't see 100 miles in every direction. So, perhaps there's the opportunity to have more detail in your immediate area because they only render, they're not going to render cars that are on the other side of this row of buildings that you can't see. They're not going to waste resources on that. So there might be more opportunities to have more detail or more objects in the area around you. Now, we do know that there are going to be some areas where it's more wide open, like the Badlands or the Wastelands, whatever they call it, where the nomads live. But I'm really, really excited to see what they do because we are going to have this densely packed city. I can't think of another game that's that's open world without loading zones that is that's set in such an environment with so much verticality, and it's not sectioned off with loading zones. So I'm expecting something pretty great.
Yeah, I think overall, and this is why the Forbes article was complete crap. Is because, again, you can't, sure, we might see or we might not see something that is not, exactly up to where we're thinking. Excuse me. Where we're thinking. However, see, you give me your hiccups now. However, one thing that we know for sure is that, we can expect something different, something that hasn't been tried before. As much as the shooter is the same thing, we're going to be getting something that is an improvement over anything that we've had remotely close to this. And that this is the attempt to, continue to push games in a new direction. And, and we're going to see this from other games as well. We're going to see this from, Halo Infinite is utilizing a ton of stuff that we haven't seen before. We're getting some really good feedback on that. We're really curious to see where it goes from here. Obviously, we want to make sure that it's good, so we're not going to oversell it. We're starting to hear a lot of really good stuff about some of the other games that Microsoft is working on. Trying to basically approach people who are outside the box thinkers and say, hey, what can we do that hasn't been done before? We see this with again with Subverse and with some of these other indie games where it's not just because of ooh, sexy, it's because they're looking at ways of doing things that are different, and it's this constant push to do things that are different. Subverse is basically the new Mass Effect, but it's also the new Firefly. The Firefly game, which, there was a brief moment where that thing was going to be put into full-blown production, get it out and just do it really good. They already had all the voice dialogue for it, and all. It was, that's such a disappointment. And they just decided, no, we're just going to cancel it. It's just we just can't pull this off. But now we've got this game where it's going to incorporate that. A small crew flying around in a spaceship doing ground tactical missions, stuff like that. And we're going to see success with something that nobody's ever heard of before, with a genre that's in adult category. And it's going to do so well, and then all these other big businesses are finally going to start to wake up and say, oh, hey, maybe we should be thinking outside the box. Maybe we should be just giving money to people who can prove that they can make a good game. Give them money. Give them just a little tiny bit of structure and organization, and hey, you have to hit you got to hit these try to hit these goals. These you got to try to hit this goal for the first 6 months, then try to hit this goal for the next 6 months, and just if they do that, if you had $10 million and you gave you picked 10 really good startup little indie game companies, and you gave them each $1 million over the course of 2 years, 3 years to make a really good game, you might even get 8 failures, but you get 2 successes that probably would make your money back. That's how the realm of investing typically works. I know this is a guy who does every year he does $33 million in investments into around 20 companies. He will not see a return on usually 19 of the 20 companies. But that one company, he will get a return that gives him back around $60 to $70 million. And that's how he does his investments. Because he finds people that are thinking outside the box, that are dedicated, passionate, and he invests in them. And yeah, sometimes most of the time they fail, right? But the times that they succeed more than make up for the failure. So it's very interesting the way that you can look at that. Nikel, what exactly were you pissed off with last night? I'm curious. I'm trying to see what he was talking about. He just says last night, and yeah, it's interesting. Hey, let us know. Generally, it's the gaming industry is in such a weird place right now, and in a lot of places where you're seeing the most amount of good movement is in the indie field, and strangely enough, with Microsoft, they're the biggest. It's the biggest, and the smallest guys are working on stuff. But you know what's important about that, and it's what Steve Jobs said, is that when you let the innovative people, the programmers and the people who come up with ideas, and ideas are the bread and butter. It's what they live and breathe to do every day. When you let innovation run the company, you get constantly innovating products. When you let marketing run companies, you get a slowly dying company.
Interesting thing about Microsoft.
Starts falling apart.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier that the guns of sort of establishment media are going to be turned against Microsoft when they start going in this direction. Earlier in the podcast.
They will.
And interesting thing though, they have partnered with CD Projekt on GOG Galaxy 2.0. They are officially on board with that. So that's a really interesting move on their part. And that kind of puts them in bed with CD Projekt, and
like I said, this fight is nowhere near done. You guys have seen nothing yet. This opening salvo this text from this lady who I know very little about, that came out and basically said, "Oh, hey, nice looking game you got there. Hear you're having some problems. Sure be a shame if somebody walked in and just kind of tipped your table over. I bet you if you hired me, I could prevent it from happening." It's like, whoa. Yeah, yikes. I seriously don't hire her. Don't even think about hiring her. Oh my goodness. And then Mad Queen um Mad Queen sent some very appropriate tweets back her way, and completely agree. Completely agree.
There's been some shots fired by the Mad Queen. By the way, I saw someone earlier ask about, is Mad Queen on board with, like, has she been helping with the video we're releasing tomorrow? And the answer is yes. It's been a collaborative effort. Now she's putting out her own video, and we're putting out our own. But there's definitely been a ton of overlap in the work, and she did a ton of research for us.
Yeah, I started. This one was led by me. I kind of got the Bloodhound thing. I started doing some digging around. I came across some very, very, very disturbing stuff, and then we decided to ratchet it up and see what we could get. That was super stuff that we didn't have to prove because it's public knowledge. So that's what we're going to be covering tomorrow, and it's, like I said, you guys will not believe what we've uncovered. You'll be tempted to say, "Dude, you're crazy," but we're not, and this is why we're not giving any of the data that we know that we could prove if it came down to a court fight. What we're putting out tomorrow is stuff that is publicly available, 100%. Just that. We're not tying any of the stuff that we hear that is very hard to prove. In some cases provable, in other cases, but in a lot of cases this stuff is really, really hard to prove because people cover their tracks and they cover them really well.
Right. Hexcelerate asks, is it possible that CDPR will move the release date up should the opportunity arise?
Nope, they will not. April is there is of course a temptation to move it up to March, but it's locked in right now. It's locked in.
It's going to be printed on everything. Yeah, I'm thinking
they're not gonna move it up. They probably had come to the decision to put it in April by probably fall last year. They were running the numbers and checking to see. Now that some people says, "Oh, hey, the release date was in the trailer that they put out last year, or was in the gameplay that they put out last year." This is sort of true, but not really. There's a lot of numbers. There's a lot of numbers and a lot of very nifty little date things that you can do. And if you give me like 100 numbers, I can make those 100 numbers tell you pretty much anything. Like chaotic math can basically make it say anything.
And so, yet you've argued to the death that the numbers in the Cyberpunk Valentine's Day thing last year meant something. Or that was this year, wasn't it? What am I saying?
Which they did.
Which they did, but, that was, how do you know the difference? How do you know when the numbers mean something?
Because there is some level of guesswork involved in this. And again, I can't say this enough. CDPR will make the decisions that are best for CDPR. They're not going to say, "Oh, we're going to make this here and then we're not going to renege on it." Like, no, they're trying to be as true to their word as they could possibly be. So if they're going to get the product out on Tuesday, they're going to get the product out on Tuesday. If they say that we need to move it to Wednesday, they're not going to. If they think it's even remotely possible, they're not going to say we're releasing it on Tuesday.
Right.
I'm just making things up here. So
my working theory is still that they hid all of their possible release dates somewhere. And
yes.
So inevitably someone would find it regardless of what the release date wound up being. Of course, I'll never be able to prove that, but that's my theory. Brotech, thank you so much for the generous super chat. Brotech asks, will the made-up controversy and media attention increase the sales of Cyberpunk? And will the game journalists give lower scores? To that first question, I'm going to say a definite yes.
Yes, of course.
It's going to... these things always work.
It's the Barbara Streisand effect.
Yeah.
And the fact is that the media and that that it's not just the media in this case. It's the media. It's like just generally, it's like old people in general. It's like, oh, those kids are dancing again. Marjorie, stop these kids from dancing. It's horrendous. Oh, are they dancing again? Yes, they're dancing again. It's like, so they're going to ban dancing. Well, guess what? That just happens. It just makes all of the kids want to dance. Like crying out loud. It's not just that. It's everything.
Plus, they've given Mike Pondsmith the opportunity to be an absolute beast and say,
yeah,
to really, say, yeah, what the heck are you doing? Mike Pondsmith winds up looking really awesome, and I've seen people say and comment, "Dang, you just made me buy a second copy. Like, I'm just buying another copy. I'm buying one for all my friends now."
I'm not kidding. On tomorrow when the thing goes live, my plan is to go down and buy 2 copies just to spite them. Also probably to give one away, but mostly just to spite them. It's like I want them to sell out in like an hour. It's like, or less, which is gonna suck because it's like some people are working tomorrow, and yeah, I mean I'm working tomorrow. I don't even know if I can get away in order to buy this thing tomorrow, or 2 or 3 of them or whatever. So that's tricky. That's gonna be tricky.
As Brotex says, so the media is so incompetent they can't even shut up and tank the game. LOL. I mean, ultimately,
they're
giving publicity to it. Like, they're giving this kind of coverage just increases their profile. I mean, how many people are writing about it in bloody Forbes? Which, I mean, they write about video games in Forbes. It's not, it's not entirely, it's not entirely unusual. But I mean, how many people have heard about that? And Keanu Reeves has a lot of fans who are probably like, "Wait, Keanu Reeves is in a video game? I'm going to check this out." And yeah, there's just, I mean, it increases the profile of the company. That's inevitably going to increase sales. Are there going to be negative effects? Well, I mean, there could be repercussions, and I think the worst repercussions will happen if CD Projekt actually, if they're the ones to blink in this staring contest, so to speak, I think that'll be really bad for them.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, if you want a real conspiracy, I'm going to give you guys a real conspiracy right now. Listen up, everybody. Here's the truth. Keanu Reeves started his career in a major way, well, not started, but pretty close, by starring as the lead role about a guy born in a dystopian future who was actually in a fake reality that then went into the actual dystopian future. And now he's playing another guy who's watching as another player, you the player, gets into a game about a dystopian future in which you're actually in, the normalized world. So he's gone from being in a dystopian world to being in a fake, pristine world, but then being released into the dystopian world, and we're playing a game where we're starting in a normalized world, going into a dystopian world, and then back into a, it just keeps on going in circles. It's crazy, guys. It's crazy. It doesn't even make sense.
I would agree with that last statement. All right,
Yep.
Brotech's second question in the message was, and will the games journalists give lower scores?
Yes.
Probably yes. Some will.
It
all
again.
Depends. There has been positive coverage, or at least neutral coverage. But the scores are going to go down.
Yeah, the scores will be really low from the journalists.
Oh, this game is such and such a phobic and such it. ist.
And careful not to drop your
just
computer.
ignore that. They're not going to want to be. They're not going to. Many of them are not going to want to be on record praising a game too highly if it's being accused of being certain ists and phobics. But I think the more honest ones will probably give it a really good score.
Yeah, there'll be honest people who give it, but again, to give you guys the heads up, unless this changes drastically over the next year, which I really doubt, because these people there's a lot of people in very high positions of power, and we're going to go through this tomorrow. But the attacks against CDPR, the attacks against GOG, the attacks against Cyberpunk 2077, the attacks against Mike Pondsmith, the attacks against everybody that works for CDPR in Poland, they are only going to get worse. Like,
the bigotry against Poland has been mind-blowing.
From what I have seen and from what I know is coming out more, it is going to get worse. And it's going to start targeting players. At some point in this whole thing, there's going to be an attempt to target the players, target the people who are talking about the game. Because this is where it's always been headed. Now, it might not go through fully with this game. This might just be a little bit too big for them. But mark my words, these attacks will just continue to ramp up. They will continue to attack, and they will continue to write the most ludicrous, insane stuff that you have ever heard or realized. Like, you're going to look at some of these articles in a couple weeks, couple months, and you're going to go, where are these people's heads at? Like, where are these people's heads at? Like, how far up, a large colon is it? Because this is absolutely mental, what they're suggesting, and it's just going to get worse. It's absolutely going to get worse. Mark my words. Write it down. You heard it here first. The attacks are not done with. There are some people in some very key positions who can attest that, we gave them the heads up that this stuff was coming, right before it hit. Going, hey, by the way, you'll never guess what's coming your way, and it's not going to be fun for you. So yeah,
it's a shame that we're in this position, but we'll get through. I mean, we'll get through it. Gaming's not going anywhere, and if we support the companies that are doing, what we want, more companies are going to start doing that, and there are people fighting back against this garbage, so we can be thankful for that. Last word of the day goes to Gabriel Ray. I love this comment. I always check the rock, paper, shotgun review before I buy. If the review is negative, I know the game is fun. All right.
And it's so true. It's so true.
So we're going to wrap it up there. I realize it has been a bit of a scattered podcast today. Thank you for bearing with us. I know we kind of started off rough with me being barely able to speak, but thank you so much, everybody, for sticking with us. Thanks for being a part of this conversation in the live chat. We really appreciate all of you. Please don't forget to slam that like button and tell YouTube you appreciate this content before you close your window or your app or move on to the next video. Whatever you're planning to do, slam that like button. Obviously, subscribe for more content if you can, and hit that notification bell if you want to be notified when we actually upload, and hopefully it actually works. We're not even sure, but that's supposed to be what happens. We want to also thank our Patreon supporters, Old Man Manson, Shannon Vega, and Evolution, which I until I said it out loud last podcast, I didn't get I didn't get his name. It's Evil Lucian or Evil Lucian, and then I just realized it's Evolution. Okay. Also, our two anonymous supporters and our channel members, Captain Dammit, Jason Cropper. Thank you so much, all of you, and for the generous super chat today, Barotech. We appreciate that. We also appreciate those of you who share and like our content. That helps our channel grow in an immense way, so we really appreciate it. If you're listening after the fact on SoundCloud, iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, wherever you get your audio podcasts and are listening to this on, I'm not even sure of all the platforms it goes to, because there's some automatic stuff that happens in the background that I don't even have any control over. I had no idea the podcast was going to be on Podbean, and there it is, which is great. But if you want the latest info sooner, definitely join us for the live show Wednesday evenings and Saturday mornings, where you can interact with us and other listeners and be a part of the discussion. The Augmented Reality Podcast is a presentation of the Triple S League. Check out our YouTube channel for game guides, reviews, comedy, news updates, and tons more quality gaming content. My name is Asheninity, and on behalf of Cybsidian, thank you all so much for listening, and we will talk to you very soon.